The modern longevity industry is aggressively focused on molecular hardware. Billions of dollars flow into cellular life extension, gene editing, and senolytic clearing. The operating assumption is that aging is strictly a mechanical failure. In this model, extending human life requires nothing more than the right physiological upgrades and chemical interventions to keep the body functioning. But this chart exposes a fatal flaw. Medical technology drives the biological span curve upward, while the meaning span curve flatlines and collapses. Society forces individuals into obsolescence decades before their hardware fails, creating a massive, widening gap. Extending a life without providing a defined structural purpose forces the human mind into a prolonged state of chronic isolation and psychological friction. Decoupling life extension from structural purpose leaves the biological hardware to fight an uphill battle against this chronic friction. Without a social framework to support it, molecular repair eventually loses ground to the systemic stress of isolation. A lack of purpose is often treated as a temporary psychological phase. In reality, a meaning deficit acts as a measurable, systemic biological toxin. Social obsolescence triggers an immediate physiological cascade. The body's HPA axis dysregulates, leading to a chronic toxic elevation of baseline cortisol. This state is known as inflammaging. The chronic stress of feeling useless directly cannibalizes the body's telomeres and dismantles cellular resilience from the inside out. Look at this bar chart comparing mortality risk factors. An absence of defined purpose elevates mortality risk by 46%, towering over baseline factors like a poor diet or mild chronic disease. That massive risk factor completely neutralizes the benefits of advanced therapies. You can load a patient with NAD+ and utilize precise molecular fabrication, but the meaning deficit will still kill them. We see a localized version of this toxin earlier in life, particularly in the midlife sandwich generation. When the friction of constant execution overshadows any clarity of existence, the biological toll is identical. The Katie Institute operates on a strict thesis to counter this. Purpose must be treated and prescribed as a hard clinical intervention. To successfully sustain a 150-year lifespan, medicine must evolve into human systems engineering. We have to architect a person's social legacy with the exact same rigor we use to engineer their genetics. The Katie Integrative Labs framework is a closed-loop system specifically designed to engineer purpose into the human lifespan. The first architectural layer is the biological sentinel. This system utilizes continuous SenseNet telemetry to track an individual's socio-technical health in real time. This dashboard tracks the purpose saturation score, measuring passive activity against active civic contributions. That behavioral data correlates to biological friction. As the purpose score drops, it perfectly mirrors spiking cortisol levels and erratic heart rate variability. The system operates on strict threshold logic. When passive existence outweighs active purpose for too long, the sentinel flags a clinical purpose gap. That flag triggers an automated intervention by the local bioforge manifold, synthesizing a precise social satiety pulse of oxytocin and mineral salts. This pulse is formulated specifically to buffer adrenal burnout. It doesn't magically solve social isolation. Instead, it artificially lowers the biological barrier to community engagement, stabilizing the body so the user is ready for the architecture's next layer. The second layer is the Sicilium network, a decentralized social routing protocol. Sicilium abandons superficial demographic matching. Instead, it utilizes the V2 constitutional profile to map a user's underlying cognitive architecture. This lattice map identifies deep experience nodes within the elder population, mapped for practical mastery. Simultaneously, it identifies high potential nodes within the youth population, defined by raw, erratic energy. The system then introduces a nexus node, a midlife participant. They lock into place as the operational translator, completing a stable geometric structure we call the triad handshake. This triad operates on a symbiotic energy exchange. The youth provides the kinetic momentum to execute projects, while the elder provides the strategic vector and emotional regulation. The network also runs specialized subroutines, like the sovereign lifer node, mapping incarcerated elders as credible messengers to route at-risk youth away from systemic friction. Leading a triad and providing vital mentorship creates a biological feedback loop, keeping their neurobiology locked in a state of active genesis. This forced intergenerational symbiosis serves as the ultimate inflammaging antagonist. By leveraging the 46% mortality buffer we mapped earlier, the network ensures the aging brain remains a critical living asset. Scaling intergenerational mentorship introduces severe systemic risks. Without oversight, platforms are highly vulnerable to institutional abuse, ideological grooming, and power imbalance manipulation. To mitigate this, participation requires agreement to the non-secular ethical charter. This mandates a humanist, science-based commons, strictly devoid of religious or political proselytization. That charter is algorithmically enforced by Forthright AI, an invisible shadow auditor running in the background of the network. In this forensic code view, Forthright AI monitors all network text and audio in real time, scanning every interaction against 182 distinct predatory behavioral markers. If manipulation patterns are detected, it instantly severs the connection and shackles the offending node. The platform also utilizes a double-blind anonymity protocol during early mentorship stages. It uses zero-knowledge proofs to ensure no physical addresses or government IDs are exchanged. Physical meetups are strictly prohibited until biometric trust thresholds are clinically verified by the Sentinel. The system's safety is algorithmically guaranteed, rather than socially assumed. To prevent this entire system from collapsing under immense healthcare costs, it relies on a specific economic layer, the resonance ledger. In the Integrative Labs ecosystem, participants do not trade time for money. They trade decency for vitality, earning clinical access via a tokenized credit called RXRX. This is the valuation formula used to mint those credits. The core variables multiply biological coherence, measured as vagal tone stability, by the user's verified service hours and leadership tasks. Then it adds a final compounding variable, the decency ledger bonus, which is driven by peer-verified acts of dignity within the network. These minted tokens are stored in a vitality trust. Users spend them to fund their specific Bioforge clinical authorizations, scaling up from basic metabolic support to advanced longevity protocols. This tokenomic structure creates a self-sustaining biological economy. It financially incentivizes the exact social behaviors that make the human body resilient. The final endpoint of this 150-year architecture is the sovereign transition. The system reframes the end of the physical life cycle. It shifts the experience away from a clinical failure toward a high-fidelity protocol of presence. This transition triggers a recursive dividend. Any surplus health equity remaining in an elder's vitality trust is automatically rolled over into the accounts of the specific youth nodes they mentored. Simultaneously, the elder's lived experience is permanently captured. It is sharded into the Curator AI Eternal Library, preserved as an immutable wisdom asset. This recursive rollover creates a perfect circle. The culmination of a 150-year journey directly funds the optimized biological launch of the next generation. Sustaining a biological machine is only the first half of the engineering challenge. Sovereignty across generations depends on institutionalizing human wisdom as a persistent, functional asset.